Hello, everyone. This is Jimmy Beach. Welcome to this exposure webinar. I am just getting everything set up here to make sure that my microphone is working and I have some good sound. Let's get going. All right. So in the next few minutes, we are going to go through a few different scenarios that show off some of the new features in Exposure X7.1. Exposure is our advanced non-destructive raw photo editor and organizer. You can use it to do a whole bunch of things like copy images from camera cards, apply editing adjustments, creative effects, and export finished photos. You can even print right from Exposure. Now, that's just for people who haven't used Exposure before per se, so I do want to give a little bit of an introduction there. Also, if you're new to Exposure, there's a little bit of a history about the software. Over 16 years ago, Exposure was developed for film photographers that would the transition from developing analog film in the darkroom to processing images on a computer was tough for film photographers to grasp at first. And Exposure's accurate film emulation presets, they're down here in the presets panel, whole bunches of them, are one of the things that really gave photographers their much loved films back. So a lot of these looks over here, I'll drag this up here so we can see. A lot of these looks right here actually are modeled after what this film type would look like when applied to an image. And so, or what this film would look like itself, not when applied to an image. The analog film, real stuff. Anyway, all right. So as we get into the demonstration today, I want to point out that there will be time at the end reserved for any Q&A that you have. And so if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them now. If they're not answered during the lesson, then we will make sure to handle them then. All right. So we have a few cool things to look at. Now, if you haven't used Exposure X7, again, I am going to be moving around pretty quickly because I use the product all the time. So if you feel like I'm too zippy, you just let me know. And I will be watching. So yeah, I'll be watching for your feedback unless I choose to ignore it. Just kidding. Anyway, I'm going to use the Retouching Workspace. And that's what I'm in right now. That usually has this closed, but I'm just kind of showing you how I'm working around things here. So I'm actually not going to use the Retouching Workspace. I lied there. And here we go. I want to go to the Culling Workspace. So I want to look through find another folder of images. These are images or folders of images on my hard drive here. So I'm going to go to this one with Andrea Livieri's photos. Now, if you follow the blog, you may have seen this image right here because we just made a video and published that, I think, yesterday about using this image. So, hey, we're going to start again and take a look at this. All right, so here we go. Let me change back to the other workspace. I'm going to go to the Retouching Workspace this time. Okay. So what that's going to do is it kind of collapses all of my panels here. So I can drag this down and then we can see how I've done some of the edits to this image. Okay. I'll hold down the / key and that's going to show you the before image. And then if I let go, there's the after. Okay. What really captured my eye in this shot were that these boats seem to float right in the middle of the image. Did you see what I did there? Boats floating. Anyway, so let's reset this whole thing here. And we will begin. The first thing I want to show you is a new selection tool that is available after you install Exposure 7.1. You know, I should probably point out that if you do have Exposure 7 on your computer, or if you have an older version of Exposure, under the help menu here, there is a check for updates option. So if you have Exposure 7, you want to make sure that you have the right one. Go to check for updates and bam, it says my current version is 7.1. So we're good to go. Okay. All right. So, okay, we're here in the selection panel and I want to look at this one, the Lasso tool. So the Lasso tool makes really quick and easy selections when you have an object that has well-defined edges, okay? So here are 3 examples. They're floating in the middle. All right, no more floating jokes. Anyway, so the tool is made to select one object at a time, okay? So it's like a lasso is, think of it as an object selection, right? So simply click the thing and drag around it, click the button and then drag around, and you don't need to close your lasso to have it apply the selection. Okay, so let's take a look at what's happened here. I made the lasso and now I have a whole bunch of little points everywhere. And it did a pretty good job of the selection, but I can't quite tell. It has some extra stuff. Okay, so the lasso tool is really fast. If you didn't see that, I'm going to hit clear. Now let's do that one more time. This time I'm going to not do as good of a job, and I'm not going to close my selection down here on the bottom. I just went quick. So that looks like it did a pretty good job, right? Really fast, and I don't really need to mess with that. It nailed that selection pretty tight. All right, I'm going to clear it again just because it's really fast and easy. Now, well, why not select all three of these objects, right? Make it easy. So, well, let's try and we'll see what happens. So if I select all three of these objects, what it's going to do is it is trying to find one object that you that you are making the lasso around. So when you trace around more than one object, it's going to find the larger one. And those two boats are connected a little bit right here in the middle, if you can see. So we can still select all three of these boats. That's easy to do, but you're just going to have to do it in a couple of steps. Okay. Okay. So I hit clear one more time. Let's select this boat first. Now I did this on purpose. See how I didn't close the lasso right there? And you see how it didn't, it's making a straight line from the end of the lasso here to the point where I started here. And because that line cuts through the bottom of the boat there, it won't select that. So if I take I want to make sure that when I have my lasso or when I'm using the lasso, that I want to encircle the majority of the object, and then you're going to have a lot better option with it here. If you wanted to select like just the boat, let's say, I would start at just the boat, and then we can go around to just the boat and then kind of let go there, and it'll do a better job of grabbing that top boat for us. Okay. So like I said, it's really quick. Like this tool is awesome. I love it. Okay, so let's clear that. And then I'm going to make a selection here just like I did when I was editing this photo. So here we have a boat. It did a pretty good job of the selection. You can see that has some extra points out here, which I don't necessarily need, but it's not selecting anything out there. So that's fine. Okay. So one of the things I can do is use the sensitivity slider here to update how, or to change how the lasso is reacting to the selection in the image. So I can drag the sensitivity slider to make it a little bit, if I drag it up, then the sensitivity, or it's going to look for harder, more defined edges. So drag it way up there. You can see how it does that. If I drag it down, it's going to be super detailed where there's lots of little tiny pieces. And it's looking for like not very much contrast in that edge to put that edge in there, or to select that edge. That's the word I was looking for. So more up on this upper side here for that selection boundary. Oops, a little bit more. There, that's good. Okay, so now I have that selection made, right? We can see over here in the panel, it says marker 1 lasso. Okay, now there's a button here that says commit. And when we do that, we should have said magic. I asked the developers to put magic button here, but they hate it when I say magic. So magic button. Anyway, I hit commit and look what happened. Now it's a polygon. Okay, so really powerful tool here. We can go and select any of these points now to make a little bit of refinements if we needed to. Or if it didn't have this or on the bottom, you can see it has a little bit of hanging over that edge. I can drag these down. I can even shift select a couple, and then a little nudge with the keyboard there using the arrow keys. Yep. If you don't, like if you had sometimes there will be a rogue point that's way up off. I'll show you. We'll make this selection here next. But so anyway, now we have a polygon. Okay. So that selection is made with polygon. So now let's select these other two boats. I will use the lasso tool again and just drag around the boats. And there we go. So you notice this time it did not get this or down here. So I would want to get that or in my selection. Okay, so now that, oops, let me redo that because something happened right here that I wanted to show you. So I'm going to undo that. Okay, so see how it's a lasso right now? When I go to move any of these points, watch my panel over here. I'm going to click. See how it changed? Once you start to move one of the polygon points, that's telling exposure you're accepting that polygon and that you want whatever they are doing, or you like the selection and that you want to commit to it. So that is what you're doing. So we've committed to that. And now we can just move these points around really quick and make sure we get our ors in. Okay. Now, just like before, or if you haven't used the polygon tool yet, I will show you. Okay. So we have all of our points moved in there, and 9 times out of it, or 90%, 99% of this is selected, and it's perfect. I just have a little hole in here that I don't want. So I'll use a exclude right here, marker. Also, if you guys if you don't like working in the panel here, you can use the pop out panel menu option. And then if you want, you can close this so that you are, you have your image larger or something like that, depending on how you work. Okay. So I'm going to use an exclude polygon. You can see right here. And I'm going to use the Alt button. No, I'm not. I'm going to use the mouse wheel to make this very small to make sure that inside of the space, I'm not going to touch those edges of the boat. And I'll use the Alt button to modify the edge there of the selection marker that we're placing. Now I want the selection marker edge to touch the edges of that boat for sure, and say, this is where I'm essentially, the dotted line is saying, this is where I want you to look for the edge. So just put one there. Oh, you know what I did? I held down the Alt button and it replaced an add marker. So I'm going to change that to an exclude marker. There it goes. Now it's gone. Okay. So now let's get back out here. Okay. So now we have our selection made, right? We have all 3 of our boats. We can do a little bit of edits to those boats to make them pop out just a little bit more, just like that. Hold down the # key. Okay. So that is how we would use the lasso tool to make a selection. And this is a multi-lasso tool selection. So it's a little more complicated, but we did it and it was super fast. So let's take another look, or let's look at another image here. Here's one. Okay. This is a really cool shot. I'm going to hit R just to reset to make sure I'm right back to where I am on this photo. And we'll talk about another thing that is new inside of Exposure X7.1. And that is another selection tool. Well, it's not really another selection tool as much as it's something else that makes selections, that much more powerful. So this time, I can use the lasso tool again just because it's that easy, but I'm going to use something else just so that I'm just showing you a different demo. Okay, so I'm going to use the edge or border marker and make my brush a little bit bigger. And this, with a border marker, you brush over the whole object you want to select. So I'm going to brush over that, and I'll brush over this. Okay, now I'll add I'll add a couple include markers. And yeah, they can be a dot, they can be a line, they can be squiggles, they can be whatever you want them to. So I'll just make a line there. So I want to select that one, and I want to select this stuff here. Now, the reason I colored that in a little bit is because I saw that there were a few different tones in that selection, and that's why I do that little squiggle mark. If they're very similar in tone, then you really don't need to do that. You can probably just click the button once and it'll fix it. Just like this. Ooh, not like that. No, I don't like that. Well, let's get the whole corner then. There we go. Okay, so now that didn't take too long. Couple of clicks. There, that's what I wanted. Okay, so now that didn't take too long, just a couple of clicks. Now we have a couple of different selections here, and they are made with border markers and include markers. Okay, so, well, it's really, remember how we were using the lasso tool and it gave us that really handy polygon so then we could go in there and update and move our little points around and stuff after we had our selections made. Well, these two little selections are easy to make, right? But let's say it was something more complicated with a lot of ins and outs. That's going to make it a little bit more advantageous to your workflow. So after I've done this too, I can go right here to, where do I go? Nope. I can go right here to, oh, it's right there. That's why I couldn't see it. It's right down here. It says actions. Okay. The actions menu has a couple of different things that we could do. You can use the fill mask, invert the mask, reset the mask. And this one on the bottom that says convert to polygon is the magic button. So I just click that. Now we have a polygon around the barn. And I know what you're thinking. And that is, well, the other barn didn't get selected. And that is, I'm going to bring it right back and hammer you with, remember how I said that the lasso tool worked really well when you selected one object at a time? Well, when you convert to a polygon, it does the same thing. It can only select one object at a time. Okay, that's the only rule. So if we want to add this other object in here, we can do the same thing again. We can go back instead of now that we are aware of that, we won't do it twice. We can do the same thing though with the same border marker technique that we used before, and then an add marker like that. And then we have the selection, and then we can take that selection and go and convert it to a polygon. So now we have, oh, anyway, all right, let's get moving. I'm messing something up here. I'm not exactly sure. It's alive. Okay, so I wanted to show another really good example of using the technique that I just showed you where I was saying, you know, if you're going to use the lasso tool, I gave you a couple of examples as to where that would work really well, like around these objects here. And I have another one. And then like objects like this one, like these vehicles, right? So you can see the detail on this selection. You can see how it works its way around here. Whereas in contrast to the barn, right, which was a very simple selection, something like this, when you go and make that and convert it into a polygon, you know, when you're doing your selection here. We're doing a selection. Woo. Okay. I'm going to have to mess with this a little bit, but I'm hoping that you're seeing where I'm going with that. And that is that once I have a selection like something that's more detailed like this, you know, has like a lot more ins and outs, that's something that we definitely wouldn't want to go with a standard old polygon and click, 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 click. It can take a lot of time. So I've seen images like sculptures where there's like I don't think I have a picture of one here, but there's like a person that's, well, a giant, 30-foot sculpture or whatever. And it has a whole bunch of edges to it where you have to follow it around real tight to get a selection really nice. And that would take forever. So you don't need to do that with the lasso tool. And, or you can use the other tools like I did before. Like, actually, let me reset there. Much easier. So there we go. So yeah, I can do it with the lasso tool like I did before, or I can do the same thing with this edge selection or the border selection method, where then I would want to add. Now see, this would be more advantageous because there's so many different tones in the vehicles. So yeah, I want to make sure that I get all that stuff. Okay, so anyway, still, that's a really good selection for like not but a few seconds of time. Okay, so now let's talk about another thing that's new inside of Exposure X7.1, and that is So we're right here inside of our videos folder, and if I double click on it, we have, I don't know if you can hear this.
Hello, everyone.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome to this exposure webinar.
That voice sounds like angels singing. Totally joking. Anyway, no, we have video support now. So we can actually go in and we're seeing a video right here. This was a webinar that we recorded last time. Here's the noise reduction video. We can watch that one too if you want to.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that is a new thing. So there are a bunch of different video files that are supported, and you can preview them right here within Exposure. Now, you can, yes, you can preview the videos right. Man, see, that's that video I was talking to you guys about. You can preview your video files right here in Exposure, but if you want to work with them or do something with them in another program, we can. So right now, if I right click on one of these videos and edit in an external editor, it's going to open up QuickTime. Then I can watch the video if I want to in QuickTime. That's what's set up. Okay. Now let's quit QuickTime. But if I want to set up another external editor, for example, I can. I'll show you how to do that. In the Preferences panel, there is, it usually opens to the General tab, but go down to Video. It is not external editors. That's for images. Video. And then right here is where you can design your external editor. So you just click Add, and then you can go through your applications and you can choose another program if you'd like to. If you're going to be working on those video files, you can go ahead and use it like that. And you can set it up right here in your preferences. So I'll close that. By default, I think it grabs the QuickTime player, or I think it's QuickTime on Windows as well. Okay, let's talk about one more awesome thing that happened inside of Exposure X7. That would be, we'll go back to these pictures. I like the cars. So we got this photo right here. I'm going to do a little bit of, oops, I'm going to reset it. And I'll just hit auto. Actually, no, I'm not going to hit auto because it's not bright enough. There, that's better. Now we can at least see it. All right, so this is when you have one leg that's shorter than the other and your horizon's off. Apparently, I do. Hey, that's cool. So one of the things that was inside of Exposure when we were working, especially with the crop and transform panel, notice that, okay, you see how it's popping back and forth? Notice that it stays right where it was, right? It goes right back to the same magnification, in the same place. That is a significant change. It used to be that it wouldn't do that, and it would snap back out to fit view. And so if you're doing something that was more detailed, it was kind of a hassle to flip back and forth, but that's been corrected and I love it. Right here, you can use the rotation tool to just drag on this white line. And it is kind of a small detail in this photo. So I wanted to make sure that was straight. And so instead of having to zoom out to do that, I can do it when I'm zoomed in right here. And then I can close the crop window just because I know I want it to be straight. And then I can do something else later. Let's say zoom out, for example, and open it back up, and it stays at that same magnification level. Okay. So remember that you can change the different composition guides as well. This is something that was Exposure X7 introduced. So, well, we'll change it to the golden triangle. Here's our actual really good example of when to use the golden triangle. I think that if you can see the side of this vehicle here, and then you can see the line of the diagonal right there, I want to make that hit the bottom edge, that bottom corner edge of the car there. That's going to force this perspective on that vehicle inside of that third or that triangle. Also on this side, you can see how it puts this car pretty much tucked up right inside that corner. And that's where you want some magic to happen on both of those points if you can. So this is actually a really cool example of that. I'm not just bragging on my own shot or anything, guys. Anyway, so I'll turn it back to the rule of thirds, and you can see when we do that we are pretty much centered right there in the middle. So that's pretty good. I think I'm going to say enter, and then we'll accept it. And notice again, we're still at the same magnification level we were before. There we go. Okay. Well, that was it. Well, I think we've covered a couple of big things. Oh, some other things that happen inside of Exposure X7.1 is that we've added some support for, there were a couple of GPU things that had, I think there were a couple of like bug fixes. There were some things that were happening in obscure situations with, I think some sort of hard drive, and you plugged it in and something else happened. And when you flush the toilet at the same time, it would cause this really strange bug. I know that has been fixed. Also, there's been support for a bunch of new cameras and lenses inside of Exposure. X7.1. It's added, I think it's 4 or 6 more cameras inside of there. So yeah, lots of new stuff. So yeah, that concludes our demonstration for today. I want to thank everybody for watching. We'll turn our attention over to answering questions in just a moment, but I'd like to, give our watchers a few final words, and that's that if you'd like to swap your editing secrets with other exposure users, check out the exposure users group on Facebook. I'm actually going to pull it up for you. Here we go. The exposure user group on Facebook. Oh, on Facebook. We can see it right here. Okay. Oh, look, there's group rules. You can read those. Anyway, you can post stuff to here. All the time people post things and, make some comments and things like that. So we always have some stuff going on over here. This, however, is not really a good place to find tech support. That would be our support team, would be the peeps you want to talk to about that. That would be my recommendation there. Another thing, Instagram. I should have these ready next time so I'm not like typing while I'm trying to show you guys some stuff. Over on Instagram, we use our hashtag #myexposureedit. So hashtag #myexposureedit. That would be the hashtag to use, my friends. If you want to post something to Instagram and you want to tag it so that we can see it, we are all watching the #myexposureedit hashtag. So please do that as well. And with all that said, thank you again for your interest in exposure.